Hi, and welcome to The Leader's Edge. I'm Emily Chiwa, and with me, as usual, is Georgia Donaldson. And we are leadership coaches here on a mission, as usual, to help you today we're helping you break barriers, but really to inspire you so that you impact others in your community, in your organization, in your role, wherever you are, and, continue on in that leadership journey that you're on. So, if you are trying to make an impact in your roles, you'll probably have faced barriers, whether these barriers were internal ones, like having to do things you've never done before, or external ones, where you feel somehow held back in some ways, but had to make the leap nevertheless. This week, we're going to get to talk to Asha Lovelace. She is a filmmaker, hi Asha, and cultural leader on a mission herself to develop Caribbean cinema. And Asha has some lessons for us about the barriers that she broke and as a woman in the Caribbean film industry. So before we begin, let me ask you this. How do you feel when you're facing barriers and what helped you to overcome them? While you consider that, I'm going to hand you over to Georgia to introduce Asha so we can get to hear her story about breaking barriers. Georgia.
Thank you, Emily. Wonderful Monday. And we have the lovely Asha Lovelace with us. It's such a pleasure, Asha, to have you on the show. Now, folks, let me tell you who Asha is, just in case some of you may not know, never heard her name. Very slim chance, but here's what I want to tell you about her. So, Asha Lovelace is a filmmaker and a cultural leader, and she's committed to the development of the future of Caribbean cinema. Listen to something else. She's a graduate of EICTV in nowhere else but Cuba. Yes, her award-winning films. She has films, George and the Bicycle Pump. I haven't seen it yet, Asha. I want to see it. And then Joe Bell and America. Those two names are so interesting. We'll talk about that. She is a founder and director of Africa Film Trinidad and Tobago. That's a groundbreaking platform. And she also championed Africa and diaspora cinema in the Caribbean. Listen to this other thing, which is interesting. She launched the Caribbean Film Festival, and that's a landmark event dedicated to the exhibition, growth, and global positioning of Caribbean film and filmmakers. Wow, that's a mouthful. You must have had some barriers to break. And when I was thinking of this topic, I said to Asha, are we talking about Breaking Bad or Breaking Barriers? What is breaking barriers? So, Asha, tell us, is there something in your DNA that positions you for breaking barriers? Talk to us.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, in my DNA, perhaps. I mean, I didn't really see it so much as breaking barriers. Maybe in retrospect now, I'll say, okay, well, yeah, maybe you did a couple things that, were not done or were not being paid attention to and so on. But really for me, it was about trying to find ways to exist in a space that needed some work and where we are still, developing a lot of areas, especially, with regard to film.
Right.
So, when I decided that I wanted to do film and I came back here from Cuba in 2000, I was really eager to start, filmmaking, and then, soon realized that we needed to kind of build more of an infrastructure. We needed to do some more developmental work, and found myself, I mean, it wasn't my intention to start these festivals, but kind of found myself, navigating the space and seeing what I could do, where I can add value, where I can help. So it was essentially finding solutions for myself to survive and exist, because I wanted to be here and I wanted to be part of this movement. So what do we do to kind of, build that? So that's where the whole thing started. So it wasn't like an intentional of let
Ah,
me break barriers and, be this force of nature to
of
contend with,
nature.
but
Yeah.
really, trying to find solutions for myself and by extension, of course, other filmmakers.
Yeah.
So innovators generally, I think, have barriers to break. talk to us about innovations and areas where you may have carved out a path.
I mean, yeah, when I did Jobel in America, which is a very old film, 20 years ago, no, more than
So
20
long.
years ago, yeah, there was
Okay.
not a lot happening in film. We were not producing a lot. I mean, there would have been films, here and there before in the 70s, 80s, BIM. A few films passed through, but it was not on a consistent basis.
Mhm.
Um, and the conversation was not happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, when you're eager out of film school, you kind of just think you could just make it happen. And I
Yeah.
was fortunate to get some funding from TV6 at the time. They were doing a project where they were making these made for TV movies and actually producing them. And Jobel in America was the first one that they did. So I was really fortunate to be part of that and able to get some funding. So, because I mean, funding remains one of the biggest barriers for
Yes.
filmmaking
Yeah.
in the region. And although, governments talk about diversifying the economy and film as, one of the topics on the agenda in terms of how we can, have some income and so on, we haven't really done a whole lot to say that we
Mm.
have generated a kind of consistent industry. Um,
Um,
and also too, the focus has been more on how do we get foreign productions to come to shoot here, as opposed to how do we
mhm.
develop our own narrative content and our own filmmakers here and our own, productions. So
Mhm.
it's been a struggle for
Yeah.
filmmakers. um, and I think that's also because of these barriers. I have found myself in these other lanes. So
Mhm.
maybe if we didn't have those barriers in terms of funding and so on, I might have been producing more films, which is essentially what I felt
Um,
like I wanted to
yeah,
do, and
wanted
I
to
still
do.
want to do, and that I set out to do. But in the meantime, we've had to do a lot of building. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean,
So you're doing a
plenty
lot of
barriers.
yeah, a lot of barriers because you're doing a lot of developmental work,
Mhm.
not the work that you set out to do. So it's really creating the markets, creating the, bringing people to understand how they can fund and what they can get from funding
Yes.
these ventures, and even creating the space for us because we have been homegrown on foreign content.
Right,
and,
exactly.
and it's really difficult sometimes. I mean, I think there is a continuously slowly growing,
Mhm.
evolving sort of wanting for local, but it's still slow. It's not mushrooming.
Mhm.
So
And
that
I
is a barrier in itself.
absolutely, and I think we
Yes.
also have to understand or really understand the value of us creating our own content and seeing ourselves. It's not
That is
just
it, Asha. I wanted to say that
yeah,
again because that's so
yeah,
important.
it is. So it's not just we want to see local, but it's
Mhm.
really this is part of fulfilling your soul. This is part of you must see this. As you
Yes.
say, we have been fed a steady diet of North American television and movies
Mhm.
and so on. And that after a long time, it can start to confuse you in terms of your identity and
Yes.
where you're going and what you're doing, and little
What you
children growing up on
believe.
all of this, and
Mhm.
everything is affected by this, and especially where film and moving images really form a huge part of how culture is expressed and shared and so on globally. If you are just out of the equation, you kind of lost and you just keep feeding in from other people, and that's
Mhm.
great too. But we also have to understand the value of this to us as a people and as a
Yes.
region, because we have our own particular history, we have our own
Yes.
amazing culture, and so these are things that we need to see, and has to be reinforced
Mhm.
in us, so that we value it more and that we could take care of ourselves and our societies more. And
Mhm.
that's all part of
Yes.
it. So it's not just about seeing local content, it's so much more. It's about how we live. All of this is affected by how
Our
we live,
identity.
how we see our identity.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
and
Asha.
Yeah.
identity is so critically important for us to understand ourselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times when we have, like, even the social ills that that exist in our society right now, it's because sometimes we don't understand ourselves. So we following again other people's cultures, and
Yeah.
instead of the ones we would have grown, like, I guess the older generations would know. We're not telling those stories or bringing that forward enough,
Yeah.
maybe.
And
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not only even about looking to the past, it's what is who we are now. And that
No.
is shaped by so many other influences, and that's fine. But the
Yeah.
point is we have to be part of the conversation. We have to have some kind of representation in the space as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
from then to now, I mean, because if you look at that trajectory, so many things have changed, so many things have fallen off, so many things have been introduced into the mix. But where do we see it?
Mm-hmm. That's so
Where
true,
is it
Asha.
expressed? You
Yes.
know,
You
where
know,
is
I
it
was thinking.
questioned?
Yes, I was thinking as you were speaking, Asha, about children ages maybe 3 to 8, and children I have been interacting with. And when you listen to them speak, you're hearing the American accent.
Absolutely
You're not hearing the Trini accent or the Caribbean
correct.
accent. And it's exposure to foreign.
Yes.
Where
And
is
they
exposure
so
for
more
them?
exposed now
Yes.
than
Where
10,
is
15, 20 years
exposure?
ago. I mean, they're
Yes.
growing up with a device,
Yes,
literally.
yes.
So they're
And
on
then it's not
YouTube or
only the
whatever
children, so
content.
the rest of us who adults who are watching and consuming foreign TV and foreign film and foreign content or perspective. We have a perspective of those outside and we're not looking at our own, context in the Caribbean region. How are we mixing all of that? So those are important points that you're making. So share with
And
us then, Asha. Yeah, go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say, we have so much to offer the world. You know, it's
Yes.
not just like a lot of things that the world grappling with right now. We have been dealing with for so long, and
Yes.
surviving well and making strides. So yeah, we do
Mhm.
have a lot to offer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a barrier in itself now that we have to hurdle,
Hmm.
and you are one woman in that camp trying to hurdle that barrier. So if not if I know that there are several persons watching and they're saying, but they're not in film, you can still identify with them about barriers that you have broken. What are some of the tips you want to share with them about going over these barriers or even just decimating those barriers?
Um, I try not to focus on the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Although they present themselves at every turn you make,
Yes.
especially in the well, I can't say especially, but the creative world is where I exist.
Right. That's your space.
So I see them. I imagine it would be difficult in other areas as well. But so I try to not put too much of attention or energy
Mm-hmm.
on the barriers.
Okay.
And that might sound good, but it is exhausting. So I'm not denying that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel to give up sometimes. You question yourself all the time. Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why should I care? I mean, I have exposure to all of these films. Why do I need to share it with an audience here? Why do I need to build an audience here? Why?
Right.
You know, um, but I think that the key is to keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
um like what y'all are doing is this is
Yes.
just important work, to keep doing, to keep sharing, to keep building community as well. And because one of the
Mm-hmm.
things is that this I have not done any of this on my own. I might
Right.
have been the one spearheading all of this and saying this is a good idea, but the first thing I would do is pull for a team, and
Mm-hmm.
a team might be one person, who believes in it, and who is there to rally with me to build something as well. So I think that that is important because you just kind of, when you have that kind of support, it's good, and it also fosters an energy of collaboration and not
Right.
competition as well. And sometimes those teams stay for a long time and you build various projects together, or sometimes not,
Yeah.
but I think that in everything that you do, if you can build a community around it, I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
really important because that gives it life.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps to balance any ego issues that might be
That,
wanting to come
oh,
up,
that's a
because you
great
build in
point.
as a team, and you learn from each other. And everybody, as you know, would have roles. There's somebody who would lead,
Mhm.
and there's somebody who is administrative, and somebody who is creative, and and when
Yes.
you bring all of those brilliant minds together, you produce something that is beautiful and that
Mhm.
is able to kind of, hold its weight in the public.
That is fantastic, Asha. You talk about the collaboration and building the community. Those things help you to break barriers. Wonderful. Emily, are we wrapping this one? Because that is just food and that's nugget for anybody who is listening. You don't have to be in film, you don't have to be in corporate, you could be an NGO, whatever it is. When you have that coalition around you, that helps you to break barriers. Might
Yeah.
help you to break bad too.
Well, I don't know about Breaking Bad, but it's it certainly helps to have people in your corner, as Asha said.
Mhm.
And I feel like when the going gets tough, like what she was saying in the beginning, like, why am I doing this? Why should I
Yes,
even care? I
yes.
think it comes back to that vision, that
Mhm.
passion, that desire inside that
Yes.
really is what lights us up.
Yeah.
So even though she didn't say that, I think the people that she built around her they also share those
Yes.
vision, and
Yes.
so it helps to create that sort of almost that the barrier that protects you against the other barrier that you're facing,
Mhm.
so that you can
Yeah.
become more of a force within to be able to
Yes.
go out and do what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it. Love
So,
it.
so Asha, thank you for sharing. This was a little tidbit of your story. We didn't even get into the into the details, but really, some important points being raised, not just on how to break barriers, which is really the topic for today, but also the importance of knowing ourselves and our identity.
Mhm.
And, that check in terms of, what are we consuming? Because there is a lot of Caribbean work out there,
Mhm.
particular film, there's so much work and so much more being produced. So maybe even thinking about, like, consciously being making choices relating to what we're consuming and what we have our
Yeah.
children consume, which will help also extend and sort of build that fire within us about who
Mhm.
we are as
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
thank you again.
Maintain our Caribbean identity.
That's right.
Yep.
So important.
Yes.
So thank you again,
Wonderful.
Asha. It's been so wonderful having you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Bye now.